Mothering Sunday. Just before I was leaving to church this morning, Lucy was asking, "Dad, where's Mummy going?" "She's going to work." "Why?" "It's Mothering Sunday." We had quite a lead up to this Sunday in our household. Lucy gets very excited about any kind of celebration. So from about Monday last week, she would always go, "Happy Mother's Day on Sunday, Mummy." And almost every day she would come and say to me, "You know, I've got so many surprises for you, but I can't tell you, they're secret." And that would be day by day. I mean, her ability for, and the gift for suspense and to build up the anticipation was just incredible. And at the end of the week, I really couldn't wait for today. So this morning, with some flowers and lovely cards, with lovely photographs of them and cards made in school and some chocolates, you know, it was quite happy waking up to the Mothering Sunday. But despite this happy image, I do have misgivings about Mothering Sunday. Not only about the fact that as a mother I should be asked to talk to you, and you may have the misgivings here as well at the end of the service, I don't know. But I do have misgivings that perhaps this image of motherhood, as it's presented to us through the Mothering Sunday celebrations, are quite incomplete. You know, we are encouraged to celebrate and to have a good meal and get together and to appreciate the day, and it's really lovely. But even though the reality of the day-to-day motherhood is quite different for the rest of the year. But I think my misgivings go slightly deeper than that. It's just perhaps about the unrealistic image of motherhood and the unrealistic expectations that are put on mothers, both by the church and by the society, that can be so different from the experience of women. And I guess my misgivings are also about the tension between that image and between the pressures and the treatment that women often receive from the society and from the church at times as well. So my misgivings are about the image, and not only I see it as unrealistic, but also unhelpful in many ways. To me, sometimes it hides away from the rawness of what motherhood, our experience of motherhood, our own, and even our experience of mothers could be like. So just few perhaps illustrations of what I mean. Our book group has been following, the last book we've read, it was the book called The Testament of Mary by Colm Toibin, if I pronounce it right, the name. And I was struck by the book. Not only that you could see it as a kind of the account of events that led to the crucifixion of Jesus and described those events described by Mary as a kind of attempt to sort of bring, I guess, an alternative view on what might have happened or how it might have been experienced, but simply the depth of the emotions expressed within that book, the portrait of Mary as she lived through those moments. And it just struck me the tension between the portrait that I would have received through the church and generally sort of over the centuries as it has been sort of offered to us. A figure, a woman who sort of almost in a submissive way accepts her fate. Fate which includes lots of joy, but mainly fate that includes lots of pain. But somehow that pain is just born in such a submissive way and should be applauded for that kind of quiet way that the pain is carried. And in this book, The Testament of Mary, the emotions described were so raw, touching real nerve of a childless parent, a parent who lost in a more cruel and horrific way her son, and emotions which were so real and perhaps in a very helpful way could be reflected by so many people. I remember hearing a mother who lost a child in a car accident saying that pain never goes away, it's never redeemed, it never aches any less. You live with it, but it never disappears. You live with it to the end of your days. And in this book, Mary is somebody who is almost numbed with that pain and lives with it in such a not detached way, but a pain that sort of really deeply affects her to a point that she can't even say out loud the name of her son. A mother who doesn't buy into any of the explanations that try to make the reality of the cross any better, easier to bear. And so I was moved by the message in this book, partly because somehow it brought me a little bit closer to the fact that the suffering and pain of this woman was so real. It doesn't look for ways of making it better, explanations. It doesn't look for an agenda that could somehow fit it into a bigger and higher plan. But it's a woman who sits and stays with the pain, because that's the only thing she could do. And I guess that part of my misgiving about the unhelpful image that motherhood can be sometimes portrayed by the church and the society, where we somehow are trying to get away from the pain and suffering, whether it's by trying to find ways of fitting it into a bigger and bigger plan that somehow that makes the suffering smaller, or not perhaps portraying enough the rawness of it, the reality of it, staying with it and being with it present. Thinking about the Mother's Day was, of course, for me, thinking about the reality of my own motherhood, but also maybe more even thinking about my own mum. And seeing the tension between the experiences that do contain both the happy moments, but somehow those happy moments are carried within the much bigger and much deeper experience of life. I thought this morning about my mum, who is much weaker and more frail, as the years goes, and somehow realized that the happy moments and the acknowledgement and the experience of the bond that we have and the love that we have for each other, and my understanding of that depth of emotions that she feels because of me living so apart. But that picture somehow, as I get older, is asking perhaps for more of me to accept and understand her depth of the experience of motherhood, which involves to be out of control of what her children do in life, of moving away, of not having enough time, of not doing always the thing that she wished we were doing, and not being always so forthcoming with sharing our lives with her, So I see the image of myself expecting Lucy to be always there and open and kind of always responsive to me and to what I ask her. And I see myself with my mum and not giving exactly the same thing that I expect from my own daughter back. And I see some sadness when I reflect on how it is portrayed, because I guess we often just skip through the depth of and complexities of those relationships and emotions. And I don't talk to my mum about the fact that as she gets frail, life gets much more difficult, because not just for her but for us, because of the amount of caring that we try to provide and how difficult it is for me to do that at a distance. And how difficult it is sometimes for me to realize that more patience and acceptance is needed. You know, there is that kind of tension between our image of motherhood and the kind of bright image, and between the reality of it. And we do need that kind of bright experiences, and we need sometimes the kind of glimpses of the unrealistic view of what motherhood is, because that does help us sometimes in the difficult times. But I think even more we need the reality of, to be in touch with the reality of the raw emotions and the depth and the complexity of it. So perhaps it is okay to celebrate the Mothering Day only one day in a year, because if we approach this attitude from day to day, we would be very detached from how life is for us. So as we perhaps reflect here together, I'd like you to ponder maybe two questions. We've sort of heard it in the reading that there was both real joy for Mary, as it is described in those verses where she meets her cousin Elizabeth, and a kind of foretelling of the suffering and pain that she may experience later on, that would pierce her soul. And I'd like you to ponder how that image of Mary is being helpful for you, or perhaps unhelpful. What part of the Mary as you know it is there that you can resonate with? And is there anything that you perhaps missing or find unhelpful? And then try to bring it then a bit closer to your own life. Before I finish, I would like to read you a poem written and expressing feelings of parents who, perhaps very similarly to Mary, felt totally out of control, of not being able to provide and help and support their child as they would wish. Because there is a point of parenthood that you do lose control. And if your child goes through pain and suffering, you can often do nothing more than just watch. The poem is called Living Petra. This is no statue carved in solid stone, a son enfolded in his mother's arm, peaceful in death, no more in pain alone, his suffering soul now sheltered from all harm. Meanwhile the mother, still with head to bare, finds mute expression for her inmost grieving, in sorrowful eyes and all the gentle care with which she holds the body life is leaving. No, this is a living sculpture of a man's failing, a son tormented, a mother with each breath, desperate to help, yet helpless in a way that people are when love is unveiling, a statue come to life that feels like death and sees no end to destiny's cruel play. So just for a short moment, perhaps if you can just turn the sort of closer to maybe in the two groups and just have a short reflection on that image of Mary, your experience of it, and then how that reflects in your own life. Thank you.